Cash-a-maniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome to the 157th episode of the GeoGearHeads. I'm the Bad Cop, along with Daryl W4, and tonight we have a very special guest as we're talking about 3D printed caches. But Daryl, before we get into all of that, we asked a question, and it seems like so many weeks ago that we asked this question.
We did.
Perhaps.
We gave people 2 weeks to answer this one, and kind of fittingly, we had the Planetsphere coins from coinsandpins.com going out to the winners this time. And all we wanted to know was, what does GLONASS stand for? So this was a little bit of an interesting one because it kind of means the same thing in Russian and in English. And I know we're all going to butcher this. So, Chris, why don't you and I take a crack at this before we ask our guest to do that? I'm going to say it's Globalnaya Navistisnona Sputnikova Sistema.
Well, you know, when I read any foreign language, I always break into French, so it never comes out right. But I agree with you on the Globalnaya, Navigationnaya, Spunkit Oive, I think it's Jewish there, Sistema.
Okay. Well, Tejas, who's our guest this evening, has a little bit of inside knowledge from his father, who actually, am I correct that he actually speaks Russian?
I wouldn't say that he speaks it fluently. He took Russian, so he's comfortable pronouncing it, but he's not fluent.
Okay. So your best copying of his pronunciation would be what?
Here goes. I might butcher it just like you guys did, but here goes. Globalnaya Navigationnaya Sputnikovaya Sistema.
Well, that actually sounds kind of nice. But in English,
it's lyrical almost.
Yeah, and for me, it was a little bit of Spanish. It's kind of mixed in.
I could tell that, actually.
How come you didn't get the oive like I got in there?
See, you're just channeling the last show.
Oh, yeah, oive.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, in English, it's Global Navigation Satellite System.
Isn't that so much easier to say?
It is.
Why do the Russians have to come up with a different word for everything?
Yeah, but how does GLONASS make sense when you only have 4 words?
Well, you got GLONA,
right,
and then SS.
Yeah, you just use progressively fewer characters from each word.
Right.
Or as Walt would have us say, GLONASS.
Yeah, there you go.
You got to say it right. But in any case, we did get a bunch of people sending those in, and we had 2 different prizes because it's going to be 2 weeks, or it has been 2 weeks. So instead of giving you a question for each week, we just had everyone send in the same questions, and we picked the 2 from a random drawing. And Antaeus, why don't you have the honor of telling us which 2 people won those coins?
Johnny Be Good 9 and Rat and Kids.
So congratulations, both of you, Johnny B. Good 9 and Rat and Kids. Make sure to email me at geogearheads@cashmaniacs.com your mailing address so I can get these out in the mail to you. And we'll do that pretty quickly if you can send us your address pretty quickly.
And
but
now that Christmas is over, you should get them in a reasonable time.
I was just going to say something about that. But yeah, the Postal Service still might hang on to them because, you know, I know that, Chris, you would probably hang on to these a little while if you got them because they're very nice, big, heavy coins, too.
I mean, they're coasters.
They are coaster size, you know.
They're
dual
caching
purpose.
Coasters.
Yeah, put your coffee on them. You know, when you're solving those puzzle caches, maybe.
Are they about this size? I mean, this is an actual coaster that I use here. It's a blown-up dime.
It might actually be larger than that coaster.
Wow.
But let's get on to the 3D printed stuff, and maybe
Okay.
we can actually have our guest make us some cool 3D coasters, 3D printed coasters, because Antaeus has been doing some 3D printing for a while, including this really cool gnome cache that I've been talking about on and off. It's this really cool steampunk gnome. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
why don't you give us a little bit of background about the 3D printing that you've been doing?
Well, I have been 3D printing for almost a year now, not quite a year. My wife actually got me my 3D printer for Christmas the previous year, and so I've been messing around with it, and like any good cacher would do, the first thing I thought of doing was printing geocaches. So that's what I've been doing ever since.
Nice. Now, Jeff, I don't have a lot of experience in 3D printing.
Mhm.
I know there are different plastics that you can use. So, if you've been doing this for a year, your caches have seen different weather conditions.
That's true.
What type of plastic would you suggest for anybody who wants to print their caches?
Well, now it's going to depend on what kind of printer you have.
That's
So
true.
mine, for example, is a MakerBot Replicator 2, which only does the PLA, which is,
Okay.
I'm going to probably butcher this one, but polylactic acid. So it's made out of like cornstarch and something else, and it can, it's quite durable. I mean, it's biodegradable, but it will last for quite some time. It's said perhaps up to 1,000 years.
Wow. And
Yeah,
that yet considered biodegradable.
yeah. I don't understand that myself, but yes. It will break down into its individual parts under a great deal of pressure and heat.
Mhm.
Nothing that you're going to encounter outside.
Interesting. Yeah, and pretty much the two common ones are the PLA and the ABS, which
ABS.
is
Yeah.
which is the stuff that like a lot of the toys are made out of. Is that ABS
Exactly.
plastic?
Yep.
But it's generally considered to be more Berlin. As I understand it, doesn't hold up as well in the sun.
ABS or PLA? I'm sorry, I have a little guest here.
Yes, you do. No, I
Sure.
was talking about the ABS. As I understand it, if you get the white, I think you're fine if you don't get the white.
Daddy,
But
is that
the
you?
white doesn't work so well in the sunlight.
You know what? I haven't had experience yet with ABS since I only print PLA, but I have not yet had anything with PLA that has warped or
For the year, less than a year.
exactly.
you've had it out.
Yeah,
Right.
and some of my caches haven't even been out there for a year yet. Let me see if I can get my little girl to go. Go on, sweetie.
Well, we are a family-friendly caching show.
Yeah, well, at least
Great.
usually.
She's giggling. I'm sorry for the interruption.
No problem.
Not a problem.
But yeah, you're in Texas, so you've seen some of the heat at least.
Right.
But I'm assuming most of the caches aren't really out in direct sunlight anyway.
Let me think about that. No, they're not. I do have a cache that's kind of under a pile of boulders, and so it's going to probably increase the amount of heat that cache is getting, and it has not had a problem yet. And
So
we're
it's-
getting over 100-degree temps at times.
So it's kind of like inside a pizza oven.
I don't know if it gets that hot, but
Well, why don't we talk about some of the caches that you've done, since you have placed quite a few of these containers out there.
yeah.
And the first one that you dropped in the show notes is called The Settlement.
The settlement. So that is the location is a historical site in a town near where I live, and it's called the settlement. So I just to bring people out there, I placed a little cache, and it's almost like a little small cosmetic container. Here, if you can see it, it's very small, And this is the only portion that I printed. You just add a soda cap, soda bottle cap, or pop, as I guess you might mention, or you might say, Daryl.
Depends on where you are from this, what part of the country you're from.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's really nice. It's pretty small, so it's a micro, but I think it's holding up pretty well. It hasn't been out there too long, only about maybe almost 2 months. Here's a larger cousin to that small one, which I have not placed one like this yet. So these are both pretty nice. I do like them. They haven't had to stand up to too much of the different weather yet.
All right. Now, and for those of us who might not be seeing those containers, and I could be wrong, but it looks like it's basically the end of like a garden hose, but capped off.
Yeah, it kind of does look like that. I guess that would be a good description. It's a dark green PLA that I've used to print the container out, so it's somewhat camouflaged depending on where you hide it.
Yeah, and you could probably print it in other colors, or yeah. We should mention that, like the gnome over here, your wife likes to paint some of those containers.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the gnome. I've got another one that I've printed, and my wife has also painted this one, different from the one that you have. This container, though, is the same. So I have a little two things down at the bottom of the gnome, a hole that's a hollowed out section so that you can put a bison tube in it, and mine I've glued in, so you just twist the bottom to open it, and then on the other foot it's got the geocaching symbol, and also on the back, just like yours. So this one I'm intending to hide pretty soon. I'm just working on a home for him. It's going to be a little mushroom-looking house, kind of like a gnome home, I guess you can call it. I'm working on that, and I know the listeners aren't going to be able to see this. Forgive the pink PLA that I had to use, but this is the top portion. I still have a lot of work to do on it. I had to print it out in a lot of pieces because it was too big. But this is the top of what would be a mushroom, and it's going to be the bottom will be here, and it will be a little house for him to live in. And as soon as I can get that all done, I'll be. My wife is going to paint that. It's not going to be pink, so she'll be painting that, and I'll be placing it as soon as I possibly can.
Well, you'll have to send us pictures of, without giving away the placement. I want to see it in its environment.
Yeah.
To see how it blends in.
I will definitely send you guys some pictures.
That will be incredible. We do have a question going back to the last container, the one that was used at the settlement, from Dane Morgan. And this is a really good question, and I think I know what the answer is. But he asked, you could print the cap too if you didn't have one laying around, though, right?
Yeah, you probably could. Now, one thing I might want to mention here is that most of these objects that I've gotten, I've simply downloaded them from Thingiverse. So I've only been, tinkering with this for, like I said, less than a year. I have no CAD experience. So the modifications that I've done is just stuff that I've learned along the way using different software. There's actually a very simple site that you can use to modify these objects called Tinkercad, I believe it's Tinkercad. I can correct myself here. Yeah, Tinkercad. And so it just lets you take basic shapes and add them to objects, or boolean them out. So you would put one inside the other, or like I did with the gnome. I basically took a cylinder about the size of the bison tube and placed it there inside the object, the 3D object, and then made it hollow. So it just took that chunk of the gnome out for me to print it all out and place the bison tube in there. So if there's a bottle cap, which there probably is, I have not found it and downloaded it yet. I just drink some caffeine and I'm good to go.
Yeah, now I can see where the printed version wouldn't work as well, though, as the actual pop or soda cap would, because that has the seal in there, which you really can't print out of that plastic.
That's true. So there's, which basically, I wouldn't say it causes a complete suction, but it does make it more watertight.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure you could do. I've seen complete caches printed this way, but they tend not to be watertight if it's printed just with the 3D printed material.
That's true.
Because it doesn't tend to seal as well as you need.
Yes. So to go back to the gnome, I've modified him some more. So I have another one that I've printed out, but this time I've added a container to it. Let me open it up. So it's having trouble opening it here. So here's where the log would go, and I've added an O-ring down here at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that, to help seal it from the elements.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention that a number of the people I've seen make the Cryptex caches have just added O-rings into those to make them a little bit safer in the elements.
Yep. And you can get O-rings. I've got a whole box of them here that I just ordered off of Amazon, and they come in handy even when you're repairing your normal bison tubes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely a good thing to have around for all occasions caching, because
or even sink repair.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually. Now, one of my oldest caches, so going on a year now, is sort of like the Cryptex. It's a maze container, and I don't have it with me. I don't have an entire piece, but basically it's like this tube here. There's two pieces inside the outer portion, which this is the outer portion. There's a nub in here, and the inner portion, which of course would store the log, but the inner portion has grooves kind of carved into it, paths, so that you have to move down and try to figure out how to open up the container. And I got a lot of positive feedback about that. People seem to enjoy it a lot. And even got the organizers for this last year's Texas Challenge had me print out a couple of those. Don't know what happened with them. I don't know if anybody found them, and they were going to give anybody who found them higher points. So if that happened, I don't know. I was hoping I would find out, but I never did. I don't know where the containers are now. I don't know if somebody's going to go out and hide them somewhere. I would not have a problem with that. But this container probably lasted, with the little nub in here, the printed nub, probably lasted about 2 or 3 times of somebody finding it. So it was, over time, people just trying to force it open, snap right off. So that is a weakness of a PLA or a 3D printed cache like this. So what I ended up having to do with these is modify it, put a bolt in there instead of the PLA. And so now
the PLA
it's
was just too soft.
Yeah,
or too brittle, even.
Too brittle, I would say. Just over time, it just snapped right off. Just like, a plastic might do, a small portion of plastic. And then one of the more fun caches that I've created, but it's not my cache. It's a cacher here in San Antonio. made a Doctor Who themed cache, and after I gave him a container, so it's a TARDIS. This is not the one that I gave him, but basically gave him a couple. My first attempt was I would say a nicer looking TARDIS, individual pieces put together, but up at the top it was kind of hollowed out, and inside was I can't think of what it's called. You know, a lanyard that you have the little retractable cord attached to a lanyard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, the mechanism.
yeah, so I had one of those inside of this, and a bison tube, a little blue bison tube hanging inside, and you just pull it out and sign the log. But since I've modified it a bit, and so now here's a little mini one on the bigger portion, which I have given him one as a replacement. But there's a hook up at the top, so you can hang it in a tree. His is blue, this one's green, and then I've taken a geocache from that I found on Thingiverse and just kind of modified it, sticking it into the TARDIS, and you just unscrew it. There's the log. It's a little mini guy here.
And the container is actually bigger on the inside, right?
Nice. Unfortunately, I don't have that kind of ability. I wish I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 3D printers don't have the ability to warp dimensions yet, so.
Yeah, no time altering of time or space.
Right, so we'll have to wait for that technology to hit.
I guess this is probably my second cache that I hid. It kind of looks like a elongated acorn in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these, like I said, are on Thingiverse, and I don't know if you can provide show notes with each of the things.
Yeah, we'll link to the things in the show notes, along with the caches that we're talking about, if people want to look those up.
Yeah. So it's just a little micro hanging container. It's got a hook on top to hang from a tree. Log inside, and just says geocache around the lid. This was actually the original one that I placed, and at the time, all I had was what comes with your printer, which is this clear PLA. And it's, I mean, you can't really see through it, but it's called clear. And so what I did was all I had was a Sharpie. So I took a green Sharpie and I colored it in, and I hid it out there. And over time, of course, it's the Sharpie came off and faded away. So I'm gonna have my wife paint this kind of camo. But meanwhile, I hid one out there with the green color. So over time, I've acquired more colors. It's a kind of an expensive hobby, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, each spool costs anywhere from, depending on where you buy them, $30 to $40, $50. And so, I haven't bought too many colors yet. I've got maybe 3 or 4 different colors so far, at least at the moment. White being my favorite, since my wife can go ahead and just paint it for me, which she enjoys to do.
Well, I think I've seen the glow-in-the-dark filaments too. So I'm just seeing like that acorn as a part of a night cache.
Yes, that's a great idea. I may have to do that.
Or how well that stuff's going to work if it's out in the sunlight, because a lot of that glow-in-the-dark material does get very brittle in the sunlight. But boy, would that be fun!
I'm going to have to try it. I will get back to you and let you know how that goes.
And now we're going to get even more expensive.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But you were talking about the spools. Roughly, how many of the like gnome-sized caches versus some of the smaller, like the acorn caches, would you be able to print out so people get a feeling?
Oh my goodness!
For what the material cost would be?
Wow. Well, let me put it this way. This little guy, I want to say
The pop can, soda pops.
the little soda micro. That one I think was about 4 or 5 cents to print.
Okay.
So not that bad. So imagine a spool that costs $40 to purchase. I can probably print a lot of these.
Yeah, so somewhere around 1,000.
Yeah. So and actually, just for the fun of printing, I have a seed cache out there that I've dropped a bunch of these 3D printed containers in. Unfortunately, I haven't seen too many of those pop up in my area for me to find. But I do have some friends that have hidden some of my caches.
Nice.
Some of the cache containers that I've printed. Let me see. I have also experimented with some that haven't done too well. This I don't know if you can see this, but it's just basically a little tube with some threading in it, so you can unscrew it. Well, that's about as far as I've been able to get it in, so it's haven't been able to seal it all the way. So
it's only about half the way.
Yeah, that's about right.
It's only about half the way in. The threading is only about half the way in.
Yeah. So it's not exactly 3D printing. I mean, the things that you can print, they're not going to come out extremely accurate. So stuff like threading, it can be a little tricky at times. And
well, a lot of what I've seen with the 3D closures like that have been the bayonet style. So it's like locking a camera lens on rather than threading it in.
Yeah, that's true.
And then you need the O-ring to help with the pressure to keep it from flopping open or whatever.
That's right. Let's see. Trying to see if I have any other containers around here. I had a couple more that I meant to show you that I have misplaced. I have, besides the gnome that I was going to hide soon in his little gnome home, I made this little, well, I printed it. I didn't design it, but it's a little Christmas tree ornament with a little area here to feed some string through, and it's kind of a, I don't know, kind of looks to me like how would you call it? Kind of polygon style kind of ornaments.
Very cubist kind of thing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have
you know
my
what
wife.
That looks like to me? Remember the bit from the original Tron?
Yes.
That reminds me of the bit. So I want that thing like floating around me, going yes and no all
right?
the time. Oh, it's my decision maker. Yes, no.
So this just opens up. It's using threading. There's a hole in there, so I'll have to put some other sort of container inside to hold the log. But my wife is going to paint this for me, and I was supposed to hide it before Christmas, but that never happened because all of us have been sick for about 3.5 weeks, off and on, getting different things. So a lot of my plans to hide caches have been delayed.
Yeah, certainly understandable. We've talked about some of the caches that kind of failed. Is there anything that you can suggest as things to avoid with 3D printing?
3D printing as in 3D printed caches?
Correct.
What to avoid? You know, I haven't really, besides the,
Long
learning
threads.
the mistakes. What's that?
Long threaded sections.
That, some of the other containers that I've tried to print are, containers that you have to do some sort of action to open it. Like the maze. Eventually, I plan to do a cryptex. There's another where it's a small container, kind of circular, that you have to put some ball bearings inside of it. you spin it in a certain direction, the ball bearings move into little compartments, and then you're able to pull the top off of it. So I attempted this one, and I have not yet been able to open it. After putting the ball bearings in and spinning it, I have for months now not been able to get that darn thing open. So obviously I'm not going to place that if I can't open it myself.
Just increase the difficulty.
There you go.
It's a difficulty 6.
Somebody will just end up smashing it.
We need the higher difficulties. Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, you do have some other ones that you've placed that you might want to highlight. Do any of these ones stick out as maybe cool caches for one reason or another, or maybe cautionary tales?
Well, we a few of us here in San Antonio had been placing some difficult hides that had been forcing people to spend quite a bit of time searching. So one of the local cachers, you might recognize her name, Mrs. Captain Picard. She threw a contest for us to publish caches that would make you laugh. Something that's either fun or silly. So it's called the it's like the LOL contest. And so several of us placed caches for the contest. Mine was called, let's see if I can remember the whole name here, Le Parc and Capto. This is some of it's in French, some of it's in Latin. I just took the words. So Le Parc and Capto. Capto is Latin for grab. That's in the title there. So LPC. So I don't know if I should give it all away, but basically it's a scene of somebody in a parking lot standing outside of his car. All of these objects have been 3D printed. So I have a car, a gentleman standing there, some of those parking blocks, and then a lamppost. And so it's a whole scene, and it's supposed to be a quick park and grab, but I placed the whole thing up in a tree, so they had to climb the tree to get to the LPC, to the park and grab. And the container is actually there's a skirt on the lamppost, and you lift up the skirt. There's nothing there. You have to actually twist the lamp, and you pull the lamp off, and there's the container. So it's actually a little TARDIS one that I have here. It's actually this container, but in a bigger size. And it's actually one of the better containers that I've found. It's I think it's called Micro Hanging Cache on the Thingiverse, and it's got it's kind of like a bell-shaped container with a hook on the top, and it has kind of a grip on the bottom, so you can easily twist it open. And it's probably, it's been probably the best container that I've messed with. It's the way that it's shaped. It has quite a bit of tubing, I guess you can say, to protect the log, just in case water does get into it. So it's kind of keeping any seepage away. But what I've enjoyed doing is taking that container and modifying other objects with that container inside. I've had some suggestions that I place we have I guess there's a little story I guess I should tell. We have some cachers here that they place caches because of other people. Either they've hidden difficult hides and they've frustrated them, so they want to get them back. Well, we had one of those recently called When Pigs Fly, and probably as a group it took us 50 to 60 hours to finally find this cache.
Wow.
It's a 5.5. It took us a long time to find it. A lot of different steps along the way. So it was called When Pigs Fly, and people were getting a little frustrated. So I decided to I have a little pig here that I printed out. Well, he's not complete, but I printed a couple of these pigs with little white angel wings on them, and so when pigs fly, I put them out at the area of the cache, just to kind of improve the mood a little bit. So that was kind of well received, but I was told that I should modify these guys and do a little pig series. So that micro hanging cache is a perfect one just to kind of stick, well, maybe in the back here.
The curly tail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of twisting the tail off to get the container out.
That's a good idea. It's kind of hard to do the twisty tail, though.
Yeah, it's a little fine.
Flimsy.
Probably
Yeah.
break.
So anything that is thin is probably not a good idea to print. If I remember you guys talking about the NASA satellites.
Yeah.
Those have so many thin pieces in them. I looked at them and I was going to try and modify them. Not all of them, but some of the satellites. Those have so many thin pieces that you just could not print it. A lot of the arms, those things just won't work.
Yeah. Well, that was mentioned on one of the bonus shows that we did for the patrons too.
That's right. Yeah. And some of those, though, you could modify. Like some of the shuttles. Those would be fun to modify. Put a container in those. Excuse me. Still getting over my cold. So that's kind of one of the things that I would advise against. Stay away from anything that has thin or those narrow pieces to them, because they're just going to either not print well or it's just going to snap. It's just going to break off.
Yeah.
But they're
Now,
fine for printing if you just wanted to use it for yourself,
Oh, yeah.
not necessarily as a cache, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, White Coaster asked in the Q&A, can you embed some type of hanging device like a wire in the model when you print it? Challenging questions.
Yeah. I'm sure that you could find a way, or you can at least design it in a way that you can add it later after you print it, which would probably be the best bet there. It's kind of hard to do something like that when you have a hot extruder. I mean, it's melting the plastic in order to print it.
Sure.
So you'll end up burning yourself more than likely.
Yeah, well, and it's not like you can really pause the printing, because if you do, without like the heated build chamber, then you're probably risking the plastic not adhering on that next pass.
That's correct. Yep.
So yeah, it's probably doable, but
yeah,
I
wouldn't.
So you've kind of mentioned a little bit that people have liked these caches. Do you find that you're getting more favorite points and more better logs and feedback from the 3D printed caches?
Yeah, I would say so. Especially like the park and grab one, the LPC one. That's got a lot of feedback. A lot of people have enjoyed it. Even the little common ones. They're commenting on how much they like the containers. Wow, I've never seen a 3D, an object that's been 3D printed. So, yeah, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Eventually, I'd like to be able to get to the point where all of my caches are 3D printed. I'm not there yet, But haven't printed something, as large as an ammo can. I haven't done that yet. And there are some on the Thingiverse. I don't know how well they'll work, but certainly something I may try at some point.
Interesting.
Very cool. You'll have to let us know how that turns out.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can talk for hours more. Do you have time maybe to hang out for a bonus show?
I sure do.
Excellent. But before we go on to our feedback, why don't you let people know how they can find more about you and what you're doing?
If you want to get a hold of me, you can go to jeffarbaughh.com, jeffarbaughh.com. That'll just take you to my Facebook page, where you can send me a message if you're interested in learning more about it. If you maybe even if you want 3D printed cache, I'm willing to work with people to design, well, maybe not design something, but work with existing designs, still tinkering, like I said, with the designing aspect. In fact, I had a question for Chris. Daryl, you have your gnome now. Chris, I'd like to print something out for you. So if you want, give it some thoughts. Let me know what you want, and then I know you said you were going to be in San Antonio at some point in the coming year. So just let me know, and I'll see what I could do.
Well, that's very generous. Thank you. I'll think about that.
You. It's the least I could do for you guys providing such a good, entertaining show.
There you go. Well, thank you. Now, we did get feedback from Team Pugach, who said, I just wanted to say that after getting your patron suggestion, I tried Evernote. I'm not using any of the premium features, but so far I love all the free ones. I stopped using the Notes app on my iPhone and use Evernote for geocaching, work, and personal life. I love being able to add checklists and photos. So there you go. If you haven't used Evernote yet, I mean, if Dano of Team Pugach uses it, you should too. That's all I've got to say.
Well, thank you for being a patron, Dano, and Jeff, you're a patron as well. And that's how you get all of this bonus material, and we do those picks and stuff like that. So, lots of great stuff happening over there available just to our patrons as a thank you for supporting the show and allowing us to keep doing them, including the prizes. So get ready, because we've got what you're going to have to do for next week's prize. And what we're going to want this time is tips for geocachers as they go hiking. So drop those with your geocaching.com screen name into the body of an email to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com with a title, Question 158. If you don't have a tip, perhaps you'd like to just send us a question for that show. Have that to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com by January 7th at 9 p.m. Eastern or 6 p.m. Pacific for your chance at a prize pack courtesy of coinsandpins.com.
Now, we have a lot of upcoming shows, and I think I say it every week. Maybe I say it every other week. Daryl does a great job on scheduling these shows. So, January 8th, that's just a week away, we're talking about hiking tips for cachers with the Seer. January 15th, we're looking at Munsey's new home. January 22nd, we're talking about GSAC with our old friend Xpunk X. January 29th, we're talking about Moga 2015. And for the first show of February, it's going to be Randomized 31 with Mark of the OBeep podcast and DeBear.
Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Huffenauer and Daryl Wanberg. This show is copyright 2015 by Daryl Wanberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.